What does a plane, a lobster, a fish, a Pope, the U.S. President have in common? The beginning of an end of a life. Let's take a walk into the celebration of that life.
I'm Genevieve Keeney, and I'm the president of the National Museum of Funeral History. I came to Houston in 1992. It was actually Mr. Waltrip's dream to have a facility that would house the artifacts of our industry. There are so many interesting tools of our trade that unfortunately were never seen by the public and or being discarded in our landfills, as the funeral homes were going away from being generational and actually going into corporate. A lot of the items that were significant to the family were no longer needed, did not have a significant attachment anymore, and were actually being discarded in our landfills. And so Mr. Waltrip, who had a strong passion for our industry and is the founder of Service Corporation International, actually dreamed of a place to house all of these artifacts. And that's how the museum was born. And once the museum opened, a lot of the funeral homes that he was connected with was able to contribute a lot of the items here to the museum. When I first started here, the museum really was an industry-driven facility. Usually it was people that was in the industry or interested in the death profession or had some type of experience with death would actually come to the museum and visit it. But the image of our museum still wasn't where I expected it to be. There was a lot of people that if you would talk to them out on the street, they'd be like, ugh, why do I want to go to the Museum of Funeral History? That's morbid, it's macabre. And I said, no, it's actually educational. It's an experience that should, be shared, and it's an experience that everyone should actually, at one time in their life, see. Because our museum represents more than just the industry. It's very educational, and it actually represents a part of life that we all will have to deal with one day, and we will all experience one day. So it's a really enriching opportunity for you to come out with your family and actually see what a funeral is about, or what it takes to conduct a funeral, and where we have come from in the funeral industry historically. And then what are the traditions from around the world? It's all captivated here in the museum. When I began having that vision for the museum, I realized that we were more than just an industry-driven museum. We were an educational museum, and we needed to have a strong foothold in the museum industry as well. And so I figured that I would learn this delicate balance between having a passion for the industry as well as understanding more about the museum's culture and community. And so with that, I began to merge the two and started showcasing the National Museum of Funeral History for what it truly is, which is a museum educational experience for all to enjoy. I think it houses many exhibits that many people can actually connect with. These are all things that people have actually experienced in their lifetime. They've seen the erection of the Vietnam Wall. They've seen that wall go up and be dedicated sometime historically in either their educational processes at school or in the books, or actually lived through that. So there's a lot of things here that are true to time, and they're true to real-world experiences. And culturally, I think that we are being able to connect to people's religious and cultural beliefs in how they understand death to be and how they understand the experience of the funeral and death process. And so a lot of our exhibits showcase this. We have a papal exhibit that goes all the way back to the beginning of time with St. Peter, and that exhibit itself really helps to embrace what the cultural rituals are for the Catholics, and how the Pope really has a profound effect on everyone as a whole, and how we come together as a nation and as a world to mourn somebody who may have not touched our lives directly, but indirectly. From the moment that we're born, we begin dying. And with that concept in mind, we have an innate ability to process death and understand that death is a part of life. But it doesn't come immediately. It comes through time, it comes through experiences, it comes through awareness in different forms, be it the media, games, cartoons. So as we're in our developmental phases, we actually learn the concept of death and what it's about. But we're not really able to see the true concept of how it is in our lives because we haven't yet experienced a funeral or the death of a loved one at a young age. And so the museum really helps people to understand that, and it gives them that opportunity to understand what goes on before the funeral is actually needed within your life, or before you experience one. You get the opportunity to experience it in a neutral environment. And so as you are able to go through the developmental stages of your life and age, you're able to have a better profound understanding as you experience it in life. So the National Museum of Funeral History has always had a unique challenge of trying to get its image accepted by everybody. And when I realized that we had a major disconnect with our community and the people around us that didn't even know that the museum existed here in Houston, I basically said that we need to come up with a plan that'll help us shift our image in a way that is positive and not negative, and make it to where people actually want to come to our museum. I look at us as a place a place that relates to everyday life. I want to go to the Museum of Funeral History. I want that passion in people to really want to understand more about our museum and what it represents. And so the image that I began to develop for the museum was that of an educational image. And with that, I think I was able to begin to shift the paradigm and shift that macabre image or that morbid image that people thought of us just because of our name, Funeral Museum. And so I actually just began to look at where all of the problems lied, and one of those was our PR and marketing area. We didn't have a PR and marketing budget at the time, and I realized that we were at the mercy of visitors who would come in and write a small story about the museum, and with that, they were putting on their own spin or their own personal reactions to the museum, or how they felt moved or not moved by the museum, and I was at the mercy of their image on us. And I said, you know what, we need to take control of our own image. We need to portray it the way we want to be seen, because we understand our image the best, because we're in it, we're the professionals in the industry, and how do we want people to perceive us and get to know us? And so I began to look at our logo. I began to look at how the public expects to understand us. And with that, I began to develop a strategy to start taking hold of our own story and start creating our own story and start telling our own story through all types of media sources, from magazines to videos to news stories. If I was able to capture a moment in front of the camera, I was there, because I knew that that was my opportunity to tell our story and get it out and help people see beyond our doors, see beyond our name, and see that we are worthy of their visit, we're worthy of their time, and most importantly, that we are something that they can relate to. The museum houses something I think that anybody will remember, something everybody has experienced throughout time of their life. And I think truly that the museum will help them live a better life. And I hope that that's what we are able to do. When we shift that paradigm, I want people to come to the museum, see what it's about, and be able to leave knowing that they're going to live a better life, knowing that one day they will die. To get more involved in the community, the museum actually creates different events throughout the year, and we actually partake in a lot of events that are going on within our community. And this helps us connect with the members of the community. We have a golf tournament once a year, and this helps us raise the money that actually goes into preserving and building onto the museum. And then we also have a car show. We are very charitable. We love to be able to give back to the community. Our car show supports 5 other nonprofit organizations, and people bring their cars from all over the nation to be showcased at this car show. And it's just a fun family event, and we try to make it as entertaining as possible. But we know it's for a greater good, and it's for our community. And we love being a part of any event that impacts our community, and it gives us the ability to give back. We're all about trying to help each other out. You know, we only get one life.
Hello, my name is Jennifer TGarcia, and I'm a licensed funeral director and embalmer. from Colorado, and I'm here today to celebrate my future mother-in-law's 70th birthday, which is kind of ironic. Anyway, we're having a great day, and it's a wonderful experience, and it's just nice to know the history of where this industry started from, some things that are kind of left out along the way to help fill in the gaps. It's just very fascinating how intense the history is with funeral service in the United States. Though it's very short relatively as far as modern day funerals, there's a lot that went into it and a lot of changes that have been made along the way, especially culturally and with traditions. Just that it's extremely interesting. It's not hokey at all. It's the truth of where our history in funeral service lies, and just to know how we got to where we are today with modern funeral service, you'll find out here at the museum. Well, definitely, I wasn't expecting the history of all the presidents and their funerals and the circumstances around their deaths, so that's very interesting. I'm only about a fraction of the way through so far, so there's still a lot to see.
My name's Shannon Ebling. I'd say all the history of there's great details, and the things that they have in this museum is very detailed, and you can really take a lot away. And a lot of these things I already learned from in the past, but we forget about the things, and so it's a very good reminder of presidential history and celebrities and music stars and things like that I forgot, and my aunt has to remind me that, well, that's not the thing. I've been kind of a little naive, but it's very interesting, and see the different coffins, and what the one fascinating thing about the triple coffin and the story behind that, it was just ironic, and how they went to tell them that they were going to commit suicide, and how the police didn't get involved is, it's just never seen something like that. And the cars, I really like old cars, and so I've never seen any of these, old cars, and so everything in this museum's great. I would recommend it for anyone of all ages. My little ones would probably even like it, so I'll have to come back when they get a little older and do it again.
There are so many events that happen in life. There are so many things that get televised, so many funeral ceremonies that get televised, presidential funerals. Our First Lady just passed away. And so many times people don't really get to see what actually goes on behind the scenes and actually preparing these type of events. A funeral is your final party, and it speaks volumes about who you are as a person and who you were to so many others. And the museum really helps to put all of that in perspective. It helps to gain an insight as to what goes on behind the scenes. A lot of times people go to a funeral and they're so distracted by their grief that they don't remember a lot of the details. And I think that the museum helps to bring a lot of those details back in perspective in a manner in which is educational, but at the same time enriching. And I think really and truly that when somebody comes to the museum, they're more than just moved. They're able to embrace death, I think, in a more healthy manner, and they can actually leave the museum feeling more enriched and live a fuller life.